Everyone, it is that time. It is the time, the hour that we have been waiting for. We're going to go live right now with Review Chat, talking about online customer product reviews. And before we get started, I want to make sure we've got a lot of live streams going on right now. So I want to make sure that we have Periscope. And yes, we have Periscope. I see you guys out there and I can hear myself, so that's a good sign. All right, so we got Periscope, we've got Facebook Live. Yes, I see you there. And we have YouTube Live. Awesome. So thanks everybody for joining us today. This is a really fantastic discussion. I'm really super excited. Welcome to Review Chat. This is a monthly discussion about the business, marketing, ethics, and science behind online customer reviews. I'm the host of Review Chat, Kiki L'Italienne, and usually with me is my co-host, Ben Martin, the Executive Director of Review Society. He might be with us in and out. We'll see what happens. It's kind of mystical and magical, the way that technology is playing around with us today.
Well, Kiki, I am trying to connect. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't see you. So we'll play this by ear, and then if I get an echo or something, I'll boot you out. Got it?
Perfect. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So for this show, we're talking about online reviews again, but with a special association twist. When the Specialty Sleep Association held their large conference in Las Vegas at the end of last year, they featured a hot topic of interest to all of their members. A panel of experts discussing online reviews. And here's an excerpt from the description for their panel. And I got this online. Nowadays, word of mouth has become word online. Every retailer knows how important online customer reviews have become in the sales process. Every retailer should want to know how to get verified reviews and how to use them to create more customers. Their panel was a big hit. And so we reached out and invited the Specialty Sleep Association, I'll get it right, SSA, to help us recreate their panel somewhat and discuss this issue on Review Chat. So here with us today, we have Mike Magnuson, founder and CEO of... Hi, Mike.
Yes. Good Bed is the name of the... It cut out a little bit as you were saying that, but...
Right. So Good Bed. And
yes.
Brian Davis, he is the SSA board. He's an SSA board member and general manager. Is that general manager for the bedroom store, correct?
Yes, the bedroom store in St. Louis. We have 15 stores in St. Louis. Yep.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, welcome, guys. Thank you so much. I'm so excited for you to be here because this is such a hot topic. It really is of interest to not just the industry that both of you work to many. I want to maybe get into the focus of online reviews for the mattress buying process. So why is this so important to your industry in particular? And if you could share with me a little bit, and I'm actually going to pick on you, Mike, first, because you probably are ready to go. I saw a little bit of a live excerpt of your panel discussion. And so I think that we'll start with you.
Sure. So in terms of why this is an important facet of people's purchase process, I think it starts with the fact that mattresses are an expensive purchase. They're a big investment for people. They're confusing. And so it's not something that people have a lot of expertise about going into the process. And then also there's just an enormous amount of trust or distrust issues that have plagued the mattress industry for certainly as long as I've been involved with it. And I would think maybe even an entire generation or so before that. And of course, that's where hearing from people who you feel like you can trust more, like other consumers, for example, really, gives people a lot more confidence in making this big, expensive, and also very important purchase.
I think so. Is there any research that goes into like the percentage of like how many customers read reviews about mattresses before making a purchase? Do you know?
Yeah, I've seen statistics generally somewhere up close to 90% now. of consumers. It's gone up steadily over the time that I've been doing Goodbed. I started Goodbed almost 10 years ago, and it's definitely gone up steadily. I remember back in 2012, there was a study that asked when you go online, where do you most go? What's like the most important place? And in that, even back in 2012, the number one answer, which was almost 70% of people, said places where they can get online reviews. It was ahead of, even then, it was ahead of manufacturer websites, retailer websites. People were already, and you can imagine that, over the ensuing 5 years, that's only increased people's, sophistication and internet savvy. So the reviews have just continued to increase in importance.
And have you seen that too, Brian? I mean, have you seen that when people come in and they're talking with you more about purchasing decisions and that? Have you heard it anecdotally?
Yes. I mean, the trust factor that Mike's talking about, over the years, as always, was kind of the word of mouth, from our customers and repeat customers, referrals, things like that. But as the last 5 years, that's, gravitated quite a bit to online. Many customers now are wanting to get online to figure out, what they want to shop for and ultimately who they're going to trust to buy from. So starting with a great website, all the way into, once you pass mustard with that, your product reviews and your company reviews is a big reason that they're going to start to walk through your door now or potentially purchase online. So very important for us.
So, and you touch on the trust factor, and that's such an important thing because I think that we've definitely heard in the news where maybe that's getting shaken up a little bit. I know that there's been stories about expert reviews taking kickbacks from mattress companies and things like that. Have you heard about that? I mean, what do you think? How do you think that's impacting, the trust factor when it comes to, people who are out there and they're reading these reviews online?
Yeah, well, I mean, those stories that you're referring to were all about trust. They were all about basically, can this information that you may or may not be finding or research or utilizing in your research, can it really be trusted? They raised a few issues related to that, but that's what it comes down to. Especially when you're talking about like an editorial opinion, it's as opposed to, it's important to draw a distinction in the review space between consumer reviews and then what you might call editorial reviews, which generally you'd think would be from someone who's purportedly has some expertise in this area. I think consumer reviews is the area where people maybe have a little bit more familiarity, even though editorial reviews actually certainly go back much further in time. They go back to like magazines and, newspapers and what have you. But since the dawn of the internet, the real kind of game changer has been consumer reviews. And I think it's gotten to the point where maybe consumer reviews themselves have gotten so unwieldy in some ways and so hard to kind of sift through that people have, in a way, have turned back towards editorial reviews to a degree. So that's what's gotten some attention on that category. And then the question becomes, can you trust these editorial opinions? And so for us, we are always trying to make sure that anytime we're offering editorial opinions, obviously we do everything we can to make sure that we are objective. But that would include things that you might find counterintuitive, for example. As an example of that, we would never, in an editorial review of a product, we would never give it a star rating. Because in the case of a mattress, there is no one mattress that's best for everyone. So if someone gives a mattress like 4.7 stars, my first question would be 4.7 stars for who? Because the very same mattress that's 5 stars for this guy can be very legitimately 1 star for even his spouse. Right.
Correct.
Let alone like someone with completely different tastes or what have you. And so it's basically like we would never give a mattress a star rating. Likewise, we would never produce a list of like the best mattresses. So, so we always are advising our consumers that, like, as an example, in the mattress category, if you see an expert, quote unquote expert, or just any website that's purportedly offering mattress reviews, editorially speaking, and you see star ratings or a list of the best, that's a red flag. That's like that person wearing a jersey saying, I'm either selling you something or I don't really understand this category. So that's obviously not someone that you can trust.
See, and I think that's really helpful for people to know, because I think that when they see a list of the best of, blah, 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 the best of X, they're like, oh, that's handy. That cuts down on my research time. I'm just going to pick from this, the top 10. And you're saying, hey, alarm bells should be going off because it's not that easy, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's the number one question we get probably when people chat in our comments and our what have you. What's the best mattress? Yeah. What do you sleep on? Or maybe a little bit more sophisticated, what's the best mattress for a back sleeper? Like, none of those questions are specific enough to answer that. So, like, anyone who even answers that is someone who, in my opinion, shouldn't be trusted as an expert.
Wow. See, that's actually very interesting, because somebody that's not from the industry, I think that I would probably fall into that trap. So I've already learned something today.
Right.
Brian, why don't you talk to me a little bit about your experience with, certainly over time, as you've discovered how word of mouth and online word of mouth is so important, how has that impacted the way that you engage customers? How has that changed the way that you plan for marketing for your own business?
So on the retail side, really some of the most important things for us are our Google Plus reviews by location. That's very important. And then the other challenge, which I had to deal with, was we're both the e-commerce and a brick and mortar retailer. So to really get the e-commerce business geared up, we really need to have product reviews. Right. So back to your case, do you go to some review company that's going to do a bunch of reviews for you that aren't true? Or do we really go for organic reviews? So that's a little bit of a challenge on the retail side. We use a company that does take our brick and mortar sales of true customers and allows us to turn those into online reviews. They are legitimate purchases of that product. But that's something that's a real challenge for people right now. If they want to be both e-commerce and brick and mortar, you have to have reviews in your products. And if you're not selling a bunch online, how do you get those? So that's one of the challenges we're working with, along with getting those Google Plus reviews, which are pretty tricky to get sometimes. There's a few people out there that do some good things, but they're tough.
So can you talk to me a little bit about, review sites that have been in the news and user review sites like Yelp and TripAdvisor, and maybe what the differences are between some of these? And I'll throw that out to you, Mike. And then certainly, as we're going along, Brian, if you feel like you want to jump in, by all means.
Absolutely. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, well, this gets a little bit at that distinction I was mentioning earlier between different types of reviews. I think of the landscape as having, at least in the mattress category, a few facets. There's the sort of like guides or forums. Mm-hmm. Then there's editorial reviews, and then you have consumer product reviews. And then you'd have consumer store reviews, and then you'd have tools for generating more reviews. So Brian alluded to some of those tools that he uses, and there are companies that provide those, obviously. But in terms of those other categories, companies can be in various ones of those. We, as a mattress-only company, play pretty much across all of those. In terms of but only in this one category. Most other companies tend to focus on a category, and they provide or one of those areas, and they focus on that across all product categories. So Yelp, for example, only does consumer store reviews. Mm-hmm. Google Plus also is basically just store reviews. Then you've got in terms of product reviews, there's in the mattress where there's honestly not much. There's us. There's maybe in terms of consumer product reviews, Amazon obviously has a lot, and then retailer and manufacturer websites have a lot, but not a lot of other independent companies that do that. And then you've got, in terms of editorial reviews, we've got some of those companies that you mentioned that are in the news. And then on the guides and forums, you've got like Consumer Reports. There's a little bit of that. You've got a few other websites that are basically like blogs, for trying to provide information about this particular topic. So those are kind of like the distinctions. And a TripAdvisor would be probably a little bit, it's tough because hotels, are they a store or are they a product? They're sort of like,
right.
But they're probably a little bit, that's unique to that category, but they're a little bit more like a Yelp, let's say. They're focused on that. And they also, by the way, they do play across multiple categories because they are hotel specific. They also have some forums and things like that allow, that are all designed to serve that travel category.
How interesting. It's when you look at all of these different places where you could focus on, looking for legitimate and high quality online reviews, is there a hierarchy? I mean, where should, I guess, from a retailer's perspective, where should they be looking? And from a consumer's perspective, where should they be looking? Is it the same or different?
Do you mean like, is it the same or different in the mattress category versus other categories?
No,
I mean,
what I mean is, should they be looking, are some of them more important than others? Are there some, maybe there's a hierarchy of the different types of online review segments that you mentioned earlier, where it makes more sense to pay the most attention?
Yeah. Well, in terms of, my point of view on this is if you're a consumer and you're researching this purchase, the number one thing you need to understand going in is that there's no one mattress that's right for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
It starts with that. And then the thing that you need to, like, once you've understood that, then if you really think about it, you can probably figure out the rest, but I can save you that effort by sort of spelling out what it means. But like, as you think about reviews, just as an example, knowing that there's no one mattress for everyone,
mm-hmm.
that you need to have that lens looking at reviews. Mm-hmm. So it's not like toasters, for example. Like toasters, we generally all want roughly the same thing out of our toaster, right? Like we don't have like wildly different, like, right. Oh, I hate fast toasters. I would prefer like the really slow ones that take an hour. We generally have the same expectations and requirements. So you can look at a toaster's reviews and pretty much go like, all right, like does it have like 4.5 stars? That seems like a better one than the one that has 3.5 stars. The thing with mattresses is like, you can't look at a mattress that has some negative reviews and go, oh, I'm not going to go for that mattress, because the reality is a lot of people choose the mattress incorrectly. They just don't choose the right one.
Yeah.
And they're not going to even realize that. They're going to give it a negative review. This mattress is like a rock. It's so rock hard. I would never get this mattress. It's terrible. My back hurts in the morning, blah, blah, blah. And you're going to hear that or read that and go, if you're not remembering this key point about there's no one mattress for everyone, you might be like, oh, I don't want that one. A lot of people said it was too hard.
Right.
Well, the reality is it may have been too hard for them.
Yeah.
But it could be perfect for you.
Yeah.
And Brian's like, hallelujah. He's over here saying, everything you're saying is right on. And that has to be frustrating on the retailer side, right?
It is. Really, when it comes to a mattress, it's two real things that are important, and that's comfort and support. And neither one of those, to Mike's point, can be judged online.
Neither one is universal. Like no mattress provides the best support or the most comfort.
Correct. So like in our showrooms, we actually can take a pressure map of the people and take a look at their height, weight, things of that nature, and really come up with a good conclusion of what type of support is right for them. We could do a virtual version of that. We do that on our website, but without knowing that information, really, there's not a really great way to say what's the right mattress for me unless I really know what kind of support you're going to need and really what type of comfort is good for you, what type of feel is good once you establish that support. So it is a bit challenging to try to use an online review to figure that out.
So this is Ben. I can. Do you all hear me?
Yep. We can hear you.
Yeah.
Sweet. So I just want to kind of take this up a level. What I'm hearing is that when I'm shopping for a mattress, like we can kind of equate this to making one of the biggest, most important purchasing decisions of the year. Whether it's a car or a home or a mattress, or maybe we're talking about a refrigerator. When we start to get to this kind of a level of purchase, this is where I don't just rely on any single review site or any single source of information for this purchase. Like when I'm visiting here in Tampa, Florida, we're going out to dinner at night, and I will look at Yelp and Yelp alone to figure out where do I want to go for dinner tonight, because this is just a $50 or $100 decision. But when we start getting up into multiple hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars, this is when I'm going to start to do additional points of research. So I might read editorial reviews. I might ask my friends and family. I might also read user reviews. I'm going to go in and do a test rest. Like I'm going to do lots and lots of research. So I think it's kind of important to draw a distinction in the review market between like I do a lot of work in the B2B world for reviews. And we talk about strategic purchases. And so, in a strategic purchase is probably going to be at least $1,000. In some organizations, a strategic purchase might not be strategic until it hits $100,000. But at the end of the day, we have to kind of recognize that there's a difference between kind of the B2C and the B2B reviews. But in my mind, a mattress purchase is kind of like the corollary to consumers on B2B. This is a strategic purchase. It's going to affect my everyday, day-to-day life. I'm going to have to live with this purchase for the next few years. It's an expensive purchase. I'm going to use it every single day. And so, that's when it kicks in that, hey, I'm not just going to do user reviews. I want to look at expert reviews or editorial reviews, talk to friends and family. So that's just the point I wanted to make to kind of take it up a level, is that, in the mattress market, you don't just look at one point of reference for reviews. You're looking at several.
Yeah. And I think that's...
And we definitely look at other big ticket categories for when we think about this category. We look to other categories that have, that are even ahead of the mattress category in various ways to get an indication of where mattresses are likely to go. So yeah, big ticket consumer product strategic purchases. I think it's a great way of thinking about it.
Can I ask you both a question that has more to do with the education of consumers for how they give their reviews or what to look for in reviews? Because obviously there's a problem, especially when you have a high dollar purchase that they're making, something where, it costs a lot to just take a chance, when it can be such a unique sort of situation on which type of mattress is the best kind of mattress. It's so easy to see where things can go wrong if somebody gets the wrong kind of mattress and they put in a bad review. So what are you, is there a way that you're approaching an education of consumers on the side of what type of review to give and also what type of review to look for?
Absolutely. Brian, did you want to weigh in, or do you want me to take this one? Or?
Go ahead and take it. I may jump in after you're done.
Yeah.
Okay. We absolutely, we find that mattresses as a category, notwithstanding them being a big ticket important thing, as Ben was just pointing out, it's not something that people actually think a whole lot about outside of the purchase process.
Right.
It's not like there's certain products that you use every day that when you use them, you think about them. Like there's sort of like, oh, like I'm putting on like my favorite pair of Nike shoes. Like, yeah, I love these Air soles or whatever. You generally, like once you put the sheets on your mattress, you sort of forget what's underneath there, and it's your bed, and you're sleeping when you use it, obviously. So hopefully, so you don't think a lot about it. And so when it comes time to write a review or look for reviews, you don't have a whole lot of vocabulary. You don't know exactly what to look for. When I ask people, like, what do you think of this mattress? Literally, people's vocabulary gets shrunken down to one word. They're like, it's comfortable. That's it. Like, that's it. And then maybe they can go like, yeah, or nope, it's not comfortable. Like, that's it. Like, you know, like, and you have to tease out of them. Like, well, I mean, like, why don't you roll over on your side? Do you feel like your shoulders starting to fall asleep, or your arms starting to fall asleep, or do you feel like any pain in your hips? Like, oh yeah, I do. Like, okay, well, that's pressure. That's a pressure point. That means it's not getting. You know, you tease out like various things from them, and then they can go, oh yeah, I'm getting that, or I'm not getting that. But they don't come into this process knowing how to do that. It's not like writing a restaurant review where everybody kind of knows, like, it's the food, it's the service, it's the ambiance. Like, they get that. We have to actually coach people through the process of writing a mattress review. And likewise, and so we have all these like multiple choice questions that we ask them beforehand, and we always phrase it in like as plain English as we can. We don't say like, how good's the pressure relief? Yeah. We say like, does your arm fall asleep, or you get shoulder pain and tingling in your arms or legs? You know, that's something that people can readily answer. And so we tease that out of them, and then we ask them to write a review, and we get a lot more detail from them, a lot more nuance and information in the written reviews we get, because we've gotten them thinking about these various things. And then when we display the reviews, we do the same thing. Obviously, we've got all that same data so that people then know what to be looking for when they see the reviews. They see, oh, okay, I should be thinking about edge support, or I should be thinking about these various things that these guys asked about.
Right. Yeah, I think consumer reviews, to Mike's point, obviously have to be done with having a little bit of time on the mattress. So when we're getting those, we're not even sending out a request for a review of the product for at least a week and a half to 2 weeks after delivery. And typically the reviews you're getting, as to Mike's point, is the consumers will say, hey, it's comfortable. Or they may tell a little story of, hey, I had a really bad back and I had shoulder pain, and now I got this mattress. It's great. It alleviated that. And from my perspective, I love those type of reviews on my site, because that's really the consumer telling their story and really getting other people excited about this mattress and that product. I can understand maybe on Mike's side, we're trying to get a little bit more detailed on what specifically about this bed is important. Is it edge support? Is it all these different things? For me, it's, wow, I bought from the bedroom store. It's extremely comfortable. I don't have back pain anymore. That's what I love to hear.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a point that can be made that applies to any industry where there is a product fit involved. And a lot of these big ticket items are going to have a degree of this, right? There's maybe mattresses is even more like this than a lot of categories, but I'm sure it's true of cars and other things where like what some people think, we think of it as like there's preference-based criteria, which things that can be they're neither better or worse. It's just what's your preference, like how much do you sink in, or like how soft is it? Like those are no better or worse, right? Like that's just your preference. Then there's priority-based criteria, meaning things that can be better or worse that may or may not be a priority for you. Like in this case, it's edge support or motion isolation or temperature or things like that. But in a case like cars, it could be like acceleration, interior design, whatever. Like there's all kinds of features that may or may not be important, but that's certainly, well, interior design is a bad example, but like acceleration can be better or worse, but that may or may not matter to you. And so we try to tease out those different things so people get a sense of it. And then we also try to tease out information from them to figure out what kind of consumer are they. So this is something that other categories can and should be doing. Figuring out, like, so when you're reading a review for someone who's basically dinging the car for some reason, you should know, like, are they someone for whom speed is like a super important thing?
Right.
Right.
For us, like it's things like how, or if they're dinging the interior space, like, are they like heavy? Are they small? Like for us, it's like if they're dinging back support, you want to know, like, is this someone who weighs 100 pounds or is this someone who weighs 300 pounds? Like it's relevant to the reader. So we always get that information with our reviews. And I think not having it is almost like makes the whole review kind of not relevant. You can't place the relevancy.
Right. I
agree.
Ben, I hear Ben has something to say.
Okay. Yeah, the man behind the curtain trying to get a word in edgewise here. This is a really good conversation, actually. A comment I wanted to make here is that Brian said that they don't even ask for reviews until about a week and a half or two after the purchase.
No, I'm sorry. I want to make sure you understand that.
Right.
Now the Google review is a little bit different, so we're asking for those immediately.
So I mean that's brilliant. You know, one of the things that I think puts you guys in such an interesting predicament is that, you know, sociologically we know that the best time to ask for a review is right after the purchase, especially if you're trying to drive those positive reviews, because there's this bit of a honeymoon period after a purchase where, okay, I'm happy with my purchase. I'm excited to take this new thing home. There's this honeymoon period where when I give my review, I'm more likely to give a positive review because I'm so close to the experience. But then, of course, with the product itself, you need to give it time for the review to have the legitimacy or the experience behind it that makes the review legitimate. And I think that puts mattress retailers especially in a very interesting and difficult situation to manage, because there's really two reviews that I'm giving. Mm-hmm. There's the process of buying, and then there's the product itself. And of course, as Brian has made the point, both of those experiences or both of those attributes of the review are really important to the buying decision. And again, when I'm checking multiple locations, it could be I'm looking at Yelp and I'm looking at Google reviews and I'm looking at, maybe specialty review sites like Goodbed. There's so much that goes into it. And so, like, Brian, hats off to you, man. Like, this sounds like a difficult process to manage.
It is. I mean, initially it is definitely, and the challenge, just like we're creature of habits, right? So if we're asked to give a review, we go home, it's not going to happen. So on this company, so it really is crucial, especially in our category, to try to get that review, whether you email it or text it to them, whatever it may be, at the time of purchase. To Ben's point, they're happy they're buying from you, right? So, I mean, it should be a pretty good review, hopefully, anyways. Yeah. But along with the product reviews that we get, we can have 2 weeks later with the service we use. It does also still do another service review. So it can kind of back it up. And we really haven't had any real issues with doing that at that point, too. So hopefully that's luckily for us, having some good reviews as a retailer. But certainly the Google one, you pretty much have to try to get that review right up front.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Brian, I'm kind of curious. When you do the product reviews, do you feed those up to the manufacturer?
No, we actually just upload those actually to our e-commerce site. So it probably would be a great idea for the manufacturer to tie into that. But for me personally, I guess I always want to make sure that those reviews are going on my products on my website as quickly as possible.
Gotcha. Since I've got the floor here, Mike, I've got a question for you.
Sure. Before you ask that, if you don't mind, I think I have a point relevant to your last point, which I thought was a super insightful point you made. Not about how much it matters when you ask. I can put some real data behind that. We've plotted out like exactly what the star rating does over the length of ownership when you submit the star rating. We can literally graph it. Wow. And it starts around 4.5 stars when you're in the first few weeks. And it goes down, it dips to a low point around like 7, 8, 9 years is around the low point, at which point the average star rating is around 3 stars, average. And then it goes back up like around 10, 11 years, it starts to get back up into the 4 territory. And by the time you get to like 12 or 13, that's when it gets up to like 4.5 plus stars again.
Oh, interesting.
So it's literally, it's just factual. Like people, they're super hard on their mattress as it relates to, they don't cut their mattress any slack about the fact that it's 7 years old. They're like, It's only 7 years old. Like, and this thing, doesn't feel like new anymore. Like 3 stars. And so you imagine like, right, exactly. They always have the warranty in the back of their mind. Right. It's absolutely true. And so we always have to, you mentioned like the tricky situation that you're in, but like, when do you ask? Mm-hmm. Like, I think we're in, an equally tricky situation there, because we want to provide the information that's most relevant to our consumers, which I think is going to be owning the mattress longer. But of course, we don't want consumers to think that every mattress is terrible. Because like if they have a mindset of like, oh, I'm on Amazon, like first thing I do is make sure is eliminate anything below 4 stars, just never going to buy anything like below 4, and then maybe I even don't even look at things below 4.5. And if you're judging mattresses that way, at least based on the data on GoodBed, you won't buy a mattress. You won't find a mattress because we talked about the issues of like people choose incorrectly, and also we get reviews from people who've owned their product for a long time, and so there are skewed lower on that basis as well. So it's a tricky situation. We want to provide the most useful information, and what we try to do is basically just put that information into a context that's going to give people sort of the right conclusion. So we basically, you can think of it as we put it on a curve. Mm-hmm. So we basically say like, okay, well, based on everything we know, if we gave you the arithmetic average, we know that you would say, well, forget about it. I just can't buy any mattress. They're all terrible. So we're going to basically put all this information based on all the like historical norms and like averages, and we're going to basically put this on a curve and tell you this is like what you should conclude from this.
Yeah, that's
it's similar to what Amazon does. They do like a Bayesian type of average, and Yelp as well. But ours is even a little bit more complicated because of these unique factors of how long you've owned it, and that's why Amazon reviews look so much better than the reviews on GoodBed.
Mm-hmm. and yeah, that's fascinating. So I mean, you could. I guess, the best way to display review data to a mattress buyer would be to say, over the lifetime, like at 1 year, here's the star rating. At 2 years, here's the star rating. And take that all the way out to, 15 or 20 years. I mean, I was, as you were talking, I'm trying to think, like, how do you pick a moment in time along the lifetime ownership of a mattress to say, here's the snapshot that we're going to use to give you a consumable, easily understood metric.
Yeah.
That's a key last point there, because you can't give people too much information. They just want an answer.
Right. And then the mattresses change every year. So the model
that's true too.
So then how can you judge it? Because they can't buy that model anymore.
That's right.
So
interesting. Right. The mattress the data that you're getting about the one that guy owned for 8 years, that's a mattress that isn't even on the market anymore.
Right.
So it's still relevant to that brand, but it's not relevant to the specific mattress they'd find on the floor today.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Wow. So there's a lot of challenges related to that we try to tackle by taking everything we know. And I just think of it as like if this was my mom or my sister, talking to me and asking for my advice, how would I what would I tell them?
Yeah.
And so we try to make our algorithms sort of match that, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I'd basically say, all right, the arithmetic average here is like 3.4 stars, but a lot of these people have owned their mattress a really long time relative to the average of all brands that have owned their mattress that long. That's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is a really good brand. Like that's something you should take a lot of confidence in. We'll give it a score that you intuitively know. We'll give that like a 94. Like that, our formula will assign it that. But like our formula is constructed so that you intuitively you see 94 and you go, okay, yeah, 94 looks really good. Mm-hmm. Like so we make the formula match up, produce a result that intuitively you will draw the right conclusion from.
Right. So, gosh, I want to go kind of rewind back to the beginning of the show, Michael, when you said that you'd be hesitant or it would raise a red flag if you see a star rating on a mattress. But I'm kind of curious to know, in the way you think about mattress reviews, would you accept user reviews along several different star ratings? So you mentioned things like motion and temperature and a few other things. Like, do you allow your reviewers to give a star rating on different attributes of the mattress?
We do. And also we allow them to give an overall star rating. So I have nothing against a star rating from a user about a mattress because they're rating it for them. It's very clear. Like, you're Ben, you're rating your mattress. You're not rating it in general. You're not saying like, I think this is like probably going to be a really good mattress for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. You're saying like, I personally give this 4 stars. Like that's how we ask for the information, right? Like this is from my standpoint. We then compile that with a whole bunch of other consumers. We also collect information from you, Ben, about your preferences and needs to help people who are like you and have those same preferences and needs find your review. But that's no problem. What I have an issue with is when people purport to be an expert and they're trying to give a mattress a star rating that's meant to be applicable to everybody. Like, that's the one that just doesn't make any sense. That's the red flag.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yep.
So I feel like I don't want to take your chance away, Ben, now that we're hearing you and you're getting your questions in. Did you have another question, or can I jump into one of mine?
Well, I just want to say I would like to applaud both of us, Kiki, for avoiding any euphemisms about the mattress market. I would have to imagine that at the mattress shows, there's quite a number of kind of double entendres and things, and I think you and I, Kiki, have done pretty good steering clear of those.
You know, the show's not over yet, so we don't know for sure. But yeah, no, I think yeah, kudos to us. We'll celebrate. We'll celebrate early. So when you get
family friendly show here,
right?
We're trying to keep it professional.
We're trying. Well, I mean, you know, so far so good. So when you did this panel and you guys had this discussion, I heard that there was a lot of positive feedback, that people had a lot of questions afterwards. What were some of the takeaways that you had maybe from the panel that we haven't covered today in the show?
Go ahead.
I don't know. Brian was the moderator of the panel, so maybe he should take that one first.
Right. Well, you know, we really broke the panel down into three real core categories of the shopping experience. So Mike kind of tackled the whole overall, I'm in the beginning of my journey. I'm looking at different types of beds. You know, where should I go? Which way should I lean? Things of that nature. And then we moved on to another company, that FIFO, that we currently use. And their focus on the panel was, how do I get product reviews onto my website when I'm not necessarily selling anything on that product, unless it's in my stores. So they kind of went through the importance of product reviews, the importance of true product reviews, you know, trusted ones, not something that's made up. And then the third was, how do we get these service reviews, whether it's a Google Plus review, a Facebook review, all those type of things. We had a company, Podium, that came on and talked a little bit about their software that they use to help do that. So we kind of encompassed all the different types of reviews in its own panel. And I think we had a really good group of people at the seminar, anything from manufacturers to retailers like myself to all types of different people in the industry. I think they all had different questions. I know Mike and James and Brian, they all took individual questions. But it seemed to be, you know, mostly is, okay, I understand that. Now, how do I apply this to my business? I think that's what everybody was trying to take all those things together and said, okay, now I get it. Now, how do I make this work on my individual platform? And I think that's where I had seen from the questions that I was being asked on the microphone and then some afterwards. I think that's what I took away from that.
Yeah. How about you, Mike? Did you hear, did people come up to you with specific questions that sort of had a theme, or was it just kind of all over the place? Tell me a little bit about that.
Oh, they definitely did. Yeah. And I agree with everything Brian said. And certainly they were trying to relate this to their own specific situation, as he mentioned. That was a lot of what the questions were about. But if I were summarizing the theme of what was sort of said up in the panel, or in the individual presentations, I think the number one takeaway was be proactive. Be proactive as it relates to reviews. And if you're not, maybe even more specifically, if you're not being proactive with regards to your consumer reviews, you're at a huge disadvantage. You're not already doing it. And so you need to start.
Yep.
That was basically all of us were doing like different perspectives on that same point, really.
Yep. Right. So, and I think that's a really interesting segue to this idea of the Review Society itself. You know, so this program is part of the reviewsociety.org. So we're a membership organization that's dedicated to advancing the ethics, science, and business of online reviews. And, you know, to your point, proactively going after reviews is one of the best things that you can do as a manager to increase sales, because as you've pointed out at the beginning of the show, you know, upwards of 90% of buyers are checking out online reviews before they make a buying decision. I came across some research the other day that says 97% of all consumers have read reviews about a product or service within the past year. So, I mean, we're closing in on the point where this is just, it's everybody that's doing this. Right. But, you know, what's interesting about this whole conversation, and I've been thinking about this a lot recently, is that we kind of have these three concentric, or these three circles. It's like a Venn diagram of the science, the ethics, and the business. And so, like we mentioned earlier, that like sociologically, we know that the best time to get a review is right after the purchase. Like that's going to drive the most positive reviews. But is that ethical? Mm-hmm. Like, is it ethical to know that to game the system, I should ask for a review when somebody's standing in the showroom with me, because the social pressure of giving a review and giving a positive review, is that ethical to do that? But at the same time, that's going to drive my business. So we've got these three circles in the Venn diagram, which is like, I know the science, I know the business, but is what I'm doing ethical? And so there's been an interesting conversation that's been going on at reviewsociety.org about this. One of the folks who's participating in that discussion has been running a review site for realtors for about the last 20 years. And, you know, his point is that, look, you know, at the end of the day, we've got to serve the consumer. Like we have to do what's in the best interest of the consumer. And I agree with him. But there's also this notion that, like, look, the people who are running these review sites, like this is their job. And so they've got to be doing things that's going to keep food on the table. Mm-hmm. But, you know, at the end of the day, if we don't operate our review sites in a way that's ethical, we're not doing a service to consumers in general. You know, so you know, we all make decisions on where to go to dinner based on OpenTable and Yelp, but I think we all would acknowledge that the way that those guys are running those businesses are not necessarily ethical. And
I don't trust them anymore. I actually don't trust them that much anymore. I look instead. Which is why I was asking earlier about the hierarchy of the different types of review sites or reviews that you can find online, because I don't trust them anymore. My husband and I just came back from Colorado Springs, and I was out there and he started looking on Yelp for, you know, local restaurants. I know we're talking about something that's higher dollar, but it's to the point of, can you trust where you're getting your review information, right? And I noticed that where I used to rely on that, I don't anymore. What I do is I take a look at my proximity. I use Yelp for that. I look at what's nearby that they say is supposed to be good. And then I look for reviews that have been written in newspapers, local magazine type stuff to actually get more information about it, because I don't trust Yelp anymore, you know? Yeah.
Absolutely. People have become more sophisticated as online reviews have become more and more pervasive and more important part of like just everyone's way of purchasing things and making decisions. People have gotten more sophisticated, not only in terms of more sophisticated in terms of gaming the system from the business side, as Ben was mentioning, but also from the consumer side in terms of recognizing that and kind of managing around that. And I hear from a lot of people like, you know, basically what they've done is, whereas maybe 10 years ago they would just look at the star rating, now they've got like a rubric. Like, oh, well, here's what I do. First I eliminate all the ones below X star rating. Then of the remainder, what I do is I just filter by 1 stars. And then I look at like, what are the things people complain about? I decide if those are important to me. You know, they've got just like, they don't just rely on the same number. But they still use it. They just have a rubric now for like, how do I tease out what's how do I manage around this stuff that maybe I don't trust?
Yeah.
Right. What's also challenging for us on the retail side is there is still a lot of gaming on the plus reviews. A lot of companies getting these for people. And I may have a competitor that I know doesn't have 600 customers in a year, but all of a sudden they got 600 reviews.
Right. Like overnight.
Overnight. Right. And, you know, the challenge is it still is a big portion of your SEO when it comes down to, especially in a mobile situation where they're driving, they're trying to find a store. And, you know, we may be the highest, most trusted brand in the area, but we don't have 600 reviews. And so thus all of a sudden we're no longer as high on the map screen as a one store chain that, there's really not much of a player at all in the market. So it is a little frustrating still to try to get organic reviews and still be in the market, be competitive.
Yeah,
right.
An upcoming show, Kiki, we need to do is on fake reviews.
We do.
Yeah, there's so much good stuff. I mean, it's bad stuff, but there's so much good stuff to talk about. Some of the,
rich material.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. They estimate that 20% of all reviews entered into Yelp are fake.
Yeah.
And of course, Yelp is using algorithms to sniff it out, which on the face of it seems kind of stupid. Like, why would I trust a computer to sniff out the fake reviews? But there's been research done at Cornell and Chicago universities where they've actually determined that humans are not as good at sniffing out fake reviews as a computer is. But at the end of the day, like, this algorithm is deciding what reviews go onto the regular reviews page and those that are relegated to, the untrusted or the unapproved or the not special enough reviews. Like, that's just such an interesting dynamics, again, about the ethics of reviews and the science that, computers are better at sniffing out fake reviews than we as humans are. But like, at the end of the day, is ethically, is that right?
Mm.
Well, part of that, I believe, is probably that the computers have more information than the humans do. If you just show people two reviews and say which one's fake, that's one thing. But Yelp's algorithms have access to a whole lot of information that they don't publish on their website.
Right.
Things like, the IP address and like which internet connection they were. Was it mobile or was it desktop? Was it like all this stuff about the user agent and they've just got a whole lot of metadata basically that the average user doesn't see on the front end, and that certainly factors into their algorithms and the accuracy of them.
Brian's point was like, he says, I want to rank high in SEO, and a great way to rank high in SEO is to have a lot of reviews. But the only way to get that kind of volume of reviews is to fake them. And so, like, I applaud you for taking the high road and saying, look, reviews, I'm not going to game the system to that extent. Like, that's not ethical.
Yeah. I mean, immediately, that's something that's so interesting because whenever I end up talking to groups about SEO and social media, the online review stuff comes up a lot because everyone's trying to not just get those reviews because it enhances the buying decision. It can sway the buying decision, but it's because they want to rank higher and they want more people to see that they're available and out there in the first place. And so it is kind of a challenge. And I think that, oh my God, I can't believe I just looked at the time and I realized that we're coming up toward the end of the hour and I still have more questions to ask, but it is a challenge that I think that we're all facing and it isn't going to go away. You guys, I want to ask each one of you a question before we wrap things up. This has been an amazing discussion. And first, I would like to go, I think I'll go with you, Brian, and I will ask you to give advice. What kind of advice would you give to business owners about online reviews?
As we discussed earlier, you got to be very proactive. You got to understand that these reviews are what the customer is looking for these days. They're no longer going to necessarily have someone to talk to find out how your store experience was, how your products are, especially the younger generation. They've never been in your store before. So you definitely need to make sure that you are actively going out and going for reviews from every customer that does purchase from you. Really try to focus on the true reviews. I urge people to stay away from the gaming. It may be very tempting, but it's not reality. At some point, I'm sure that's all going to be kind of flushed out. But ultimately, you need to have product reviews and you need to have service reviews on your company. Otherwise, when the customer's out there shopping, they're just not going to find you. You're going to keep moving farther and farther down the list. And if you're not there, your competition is going to be there. So you need to be proactive and understand that the new part of marketing now is to not only just drive your product out and your company out there, but to be able to get those reviews and customers are going to look at those before they walk into your store or potentially visit your site.
Yeah, that's great. If I could just tack something on there, I read an article recently that said that 80% of millennials in the UK will not buy anything without reading a review. They make zero purchases without reading a review, and this is 80% of millennials in the UK. And I think in the States here, and that translates around the world, I think, pretty well. But the other interesting thing about this survey was that only 8% of Britons, people in the UK, will actually ask a friend or a relative. So, like, when we say that people trust online reviews as much as a recommendation from friends or family, like only 8% of people in the UK will actually follow through with this notion of asking a friend or a relative about a purchase. But 80% of millennials won't buy anything without reading a review.
I wonder why. I mean, not the why they won't buy anything without reading a review. To ask someone?
Yeah, I believe so. Like, why would I go through the trouble of asking somebody when I can just go to a website and look at reviews and see hundreds of them? Whereas if I'm going to ask my Aunt Sally, like, I get one opinion. So I think it's the level of effort.
Mm-hmm. It makes me think, I think that there are occasions when I'll put out a blanket ask about something, but I actually go to people who have already done the research, who I know, like, if I'm going to purchase something, and I go to them specifically. So it is a lot of effort. We're actually putting research into who might have done their research better than others.
Yes. And I think it goes to this whole notion of how expensive is it? Is this a strategic purchase? Am I getting ready to drop $2,500 or $25?
Right.
There's a big difference in how I consult reviews depending on the level of exposure that I have.
Oh, there's so much more to say on this. Yeah. So I need to ask my next question. And that is, I wanted to ask you, Mike, what advice would you give to mattress buyers about online reviews?
For mattress buyers, I'd probably give a few pieces of advice. Number one would be the point I made earlier about there's no one mattress that's right for everyone.
Yeah.
So you have to put those glasses on when you enter the online reviews research world. Number two, definitely be leery of editorial reviews that have a star rating or a best lists. Mm-hmm. That's something if you enter the online mattress reviews world, you're going to come across those probably in your first Google search.
Yeah.
And you need to know to steer clear. Next, I would say definitely look at multiple sources. We talked about there's lots of places that have reviews. I certainly would include independent sources like Goodbed in your mix. And then I guess I would say just a lot of corollary things to those, like, for example, don't be scared off by negative reviews. We talked about some of the reasons for that. Look at how a company responds as one thing to take from a negative review. So those would be some of the key pieces of advice. Look at how long the customer has owned the product. We talked about the importance of that. That's super relevant to interpreting the value of an online review, or also interpreting the score. Mm-hmm. So
we have one final question from Ben. Ben,
yes.
Hit it, my friend.
So, Mike, I'm put you on the spot a little bit here. On a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rate editorial reviews on mattresses in general, overall?
How would I rate the state of editorial reviews right now?
Well, so let me preface the question maybe with this, or back it up and say that, one of the big reasons, there were two big reasons for wanting to book this show. The first one was that it was the Specialty Sleep Association who was sponsoring this panel discussion. As association people, Kiki and I are obviously keenly interested in what people who work for associations are doing around reviews. The other thing that piqued our interest in this topic was the media fanfare that went on a few months ago, talking about editorial reviews and how people had been on the take from various companies for writing these editorial reviews. Mm-hmm. So as someone who is an independent review site of mattresses, Mike, I'm kind of interested in your take on what what do you think about editorial reviews? Like, and obviously I'm not going to force you into a 1 to 5 star rating on this, but like, I'm just kind of curious, like what are your pros and your cons about editorial reviews on mattresses?
Okay, well, that's certainly a great way of putting it there. I would say certainly take the cons first. Like the cons certainly are, you have to bear in mind the source, right? Like you have to know whether you can trust what you're hearing, and you have to be leery going in, I think. And so that's why I gave those like kind of indicators, the key thing tells, if you will, to look for. Because there are, literally, we track obviously all the sites that do this. There's over 60 on our list that offer editorial mattress reviews at this point, which is insane. It's just absolutely insane how much that's exploded. Needless to say, the vast majority of those are nothing that you'd remotely define as a mattress expert, and may or may not be someone you can trust otherwise. So that's the cons, is that it's a wild west out there with a lot of players, and it's hard to know who to trust unless you keep in mind some of these like key tells that I mentioned. The pros are that, like we talked about earlier, this is not a category that consumers tend to be expert in. Like you have a lot of like, there's probably a great word for this, but like enthusiasts, it was the best word I can think of, in categories like cars or like home electronics. You know, people who just get super into like home electronics. You probably know people who are like, oh, this is my go-to guy. When I have like a home stereo type of question, like I go to Phil. He's the guy. Like he just loves this stuff. He nerds out. He'll walk me through the whole thing. Phil probably reads about the latest products just for fun, even when he's not shopping for them. Well, guess what? There's very few people in the world who would qualify as that for mattresses.
That's true.
Maybe no one. And so you're looking for someone who you can trust, a point of view. You know that there's all these perils to consumer reviews that we talked about, where like you don't know for sure which reviews are most relevant to you. You don't know how long they've had them. All these things makes it hard to parse through all that stuff. And we talked about the trust issues that people have as it relates to the companies that sell. So you're looking for who can I trust that actually knows something about this category. And that's where I do think that there is a lot of value in these editorial reviews, to the extent that you can get somebody who actually is an expert and is actually willing to present the information in an objective way.
Perfect answer. Thank you.
It's fascinating. This has changed what I want from online reviews, actually, because once you brought up the idea that the fact that you have been tracking these ratings over the span over so many years, and you can see what they trend. If I'm going to make a purchase that I want to last for a long time, that's the kind of star rating that I want to see, is like in 4 years, in 7 years. What was the star rating then, and compare them? And wouldn't it be interesting if that was available on more of these long-term purchases that many of us try to make? So thanks for bringing that up. Thanks to both of you, actually. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Brian, for joining us, for joining me and Ben on the show today.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. It's great.
If people want to contact you directly, where can they best find you both?
You can find me online at our website. We've got comments on our YouTube, our Facebook, our website itself, our Twitter, of course. That's generally the best way to reach us. But you can also, if it's something kind of business related, you can email me at mike@goodbed.com.
Okay.
Right. And I think probably for myself, probably email would probably be best. I'm at bdavis@thebedroomstore.com. I'd be happy to field any emails, questions they may have on the retail side or anything that they may have. So I'd be happy to do it.
Mike is one of the newest members of the Review Society, so you can find him at reviewsociety.org.
That's fantastic.
That's true too.
Hey, welcome to the Review Society. That's awesome. And I do want to give a big thank you to the Specialty Sleep Association for all of the work on pulling this together. And it's such a fascinating discussion. I really appreciate it. We appreciate it. And thanks to all of you who are listening and joining us for this episode of Review Chat. This is your only live show and podcast dedicated to the art and science and ethics and business and marketing of online customer reviews. You can always catch new episodes of The Chat on the second Thursday of every month, usually the second Thursday of every month. And please check out the Review Society online for more information at www.reviewsociety.org. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Kiki.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.